What is the reality of the heart? This is basically like my other teaching, the reality of faith, kind of like part two. Um, the Bible uses the word heart in quite a few different ways, but it generally refers to the inner self, the inner person. And in Webster, the dictionary, the word heart means one's innermost character, feelings, or inclinations, the essential or most vital part of something, the central or innermost part, the center. And that's generally how I'm going to use it, as pretty much the centermost part. Not everything, but of who you are, but just the most centermost part of you. So it's the essential or most vital part of something. It's kind of like the roots or the foundation of who we are. Um, so, but what I want to know is how is it structured? How does it work? What is, it just seems to be kind of mysterious. We don't know much about it. What is the reality of the heart? In Romans chapter 10, verse 10 in the NLT, it says, "For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God." That can tell us a lot of things. One thing that I want to point out is that it is by believing in your heart. Well, that should tell us that there are beliefs in our heart. And Jesus said in Matthew 15:19, it says, "From the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, all sexual immorality, theft, lying, and slander." It's just all sin and sinful thoughts and sinful desires. He says that it comes from the heart, out of the heart. So if believing in your heart means that there are beliefs in your heart, then then we can change what he said in Matthew 15:19. From the heart come evil thoughts. We could say that from believing in your heart comes evil thoughts, desires, sins, sexual immorality, theft, lying, all of those. Genesis 3:6, the NLT says the woman was convinced. That's when I mentioned that in the other teaching, is that Eve believed what the serpent was telling her was the truth, the lies. She believed the lies and accepted them as truth. It was what it was real to her. And then in Genesis 3:13, she basically blamed when she blamed the serpent, she said, "The serpent deceived me." Well, if you look up what the word deceive means, it means to cause someone to believe what is not true. So it plainly says that she believed something that wasn't true. And if you look at my other teaching, I pretty much came to the conclusion that faith is our perception of reality. And that has a big impact when you actually start believing things deep in your heart and not just have the idea, or, there's different levels of belief, but when we start believing something to be real, we actually start processing, our mind and brain processes the lie as if it were real, if it were true. And again in Genesis chapter 3 verse 6, this is the NLT, it says the woman was convinced, she was persuaded that what he was saying was truth. And then it says that she saw that the tree was beautiful, that it changed her perception. She saw then. Before she didn't saw it, she see it. She wasn't paying no attention or no thought to it. And it says, and its fruit looked delicious, and she desired, beginning the desire for it. All that looks tasting and pleasing or satisfying. That it created in her desire when she believed in the lie. And she wanted or desired the wisdom it would give her. And she started reasoning with herself, with her emotions and her thoughts and desires. So she took some of the fruit and ate it, which was the act of sin, which is proof that the sin was already in her heart. She already believed it. That's why Jesus said, from out of the heart come those sins, and even the evil thoughts. Because the actual act of it is proof that it's in your heart already, that you already believe it. And she gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it too, which was sowing the seeds of sin. So it reproduces after its own kind, just like God's word does. It will not return to him void. Well, the seeds of Satan often doesn't return to him void either. It brings in a third of the angels in heaven. Speaking of seeds, that in the parable of the sower, in Matthew chapter 13, verse 19, part of it says, seed that was planted in their hearts. That I don't really think that it's just simply a parable. I think there's more to it. To me, the heart is not simply like a garden, that in a sense it is a garden. It may sound crazy, but hear me. We are made from the dust of the ground. We are physically made out of dirt. The same stuff that molecules and atoms that dirt's made out of is what we're made out of. And plants, of course, the stuff that's in the garden grows in the dirt from the ground. It gets its nutrition and things from the ground. However, what a plant looks like, what it produces and how it grows is encoded in its DNA. This DNA is even in the seed, when it was first sowed. Within the seed contains the complete idea of what it is, what it will be, and what it will produce. All of that information is encoded in a single seed, like a single word. Words are seeds that contain the ideas and concepts. Depending on how much we believe them, they determine who we are, what we will be, and what we will produce in our life. And it's all that's encoded in those ideas and concepts. So when you believe them, it starts acting out. It becomes real to you, just like with Eve, and then it starts producing fruit. And all that is encoded in the ideas, part of it. Which is why it's so important that we should guard our heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Proverbs 4:23, and I think even some versions even say the issues of life. And Jeremiah 17:9-10 of the NLT says, the human heart is the most deceitful of all things and desperately wicked. Who really knows how bad it is? But I, the Lord, search all hearts and examine secret motives. I give all people their due rewards according to what their actions deserve. And just like we're supposed to be like Jesus, be like God, He searches out all hearts and examines secret motives. Well, we should at least try to do that to ourselves, to try to search out our own hearts and our own secret motives. And it says that He gives people their due rewards according to what their actions deserve, which should be a fearful thing. And it says that in 2 Corinthians 7:1, because we have these promises, dear friends, let us cleanse ourselves from everything that can defile our body or spirit, and let us work toward complete holiness because we fear God. Cleanse ourselves, purify ourselves, as you will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master. Genesis 4:7. That sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you. This is the door of your heart. Because if it gets in, it'll control you. And we can, and this gives us hope that you must subdue it and be its master. You must subdue it and be its master. And that means that we can. So there is hope, and there is encouragement. In the study of the brain, they have something called plasticity or neuroplasticity, and it's basically like the brain can change. And so we know that according to the Bible that we can be shaped and molded. That He's like a potter shaping us and molding us. That our minds and stuff can actually change, and we can renew our minds and get the mind of Christ and things like that. But in science, they're showing on this neuroplasticity that our brains kind of can change and physically change their connections that they have, and disconnect too also. Like if you have the idea of yourself, your identity is like represents what's from brain cells, and you have another idea of that maybe you're worthless, the idea that you're worthless, and you have these two separate things: your identity, who you are, and the idea of being worthless. And if somebody tells you that you are worthless, then you start associating, that sentence itself associates you and being worthless together in a single sentence. So in your mind, it's just like what Satan would led her to associate the lies with things. And that's what is doing. If that's spoken into your life every time, it can actually make a connection where you no longer have to think about it. And the more you think you call yourself worthless, or the more other people do, the stronger the connections get every time, and then it becomes part of who you are. You perceive yourself as being worthless. It becomes a reality to you. It becomes how you see yourself. And we start associating the ideas together. It becomes part of our perception. And it's by associating the lies with reality that we have these issues and sins within us. So to reverse it, we have to associate truth with reality. So like Jesus, when Jesus was tempted, the devil gave specific lies, and Jesus gave specific truth that perfectly countered the lies. And that's what we have to do also. That's the key. Those are the two keys, really. Specific lie, you have to find out what that is, and then you have to counter that with a specific truth. That the more we connect those ideas together, it becomes part of who we are, and it becomes our nature. The Bible talks about our sinful nature. It's because those lies have become part of us. It becomes natural. You don't have to think about it. Your mind processes these things for you. Like I think I mentioned that in the other video, and then on the description of the other video. But it can be overcome. We can master it. And Jesus didn't have this problem specifically because he didn't have sin in him. But by the same principles, we can get the sin out of us, which would be more of a battle. But once we get it out of us, then our burden will be easy and our yoke light. That once it's out of us, then all you have to do is put up the shield of faith to block those lies. You no longer associate the idea of being worthless with yourself, but even if the thought happens or somebody says something, you're like, no, that's not true. Man, I know that's not true now. And so once you get it out of you, it's no longer your nature. So then it gives us hope that we truly can become like him, become the sons of God. And I plan on putting in more teachings on specific problems and sins, so that we can, like Jesus talked about, to pull the log out of our own eye to see clearly, so we can help others pull the speck out of their eye. For every child of God defeats this evil world, and we achieve this victory through our faith.